Hi, my name is Max Haynes, and I'm an industrial and systems engineer, but I'm also getting my master's in finance. And so I thought it was only fitting to kind of show some financial information and stuff for people and ways to get it. So this is the SEC, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission. They're the federal body that kind of regulates the stock market in simple terms. So what we're going to go to do is just go to SEC.gov, click on company filings, and then here you're going to enter in either the name or the stock ticker symbol, which is like the abbreviation essentially of a company's stock. And you're going to be able to look up all of their filings. So today we're going to look at Mosaic. Mosaic is a company that creates fertilizers. They're in the S&P 500, and I believe they're also in the Fortune 500. And they're a very, very big company, but they create fertilizers for the most part. And what happens is all public companies, which public means they're traded on the stock market in the United States, they have to release all of their financial filings every quarter and every year. So your 10K is going to be the annual report, which is going to be the report that is filed at the end of their year. It may not be December, it may be May or March, or could be a different month, but it will be a summary of the entire previous business cycle of that year. And the 10Q will be every quarter, so that'll be every 3 months. And these are important things to be able to know about, especially if you're looking to invest into the stock market. If you want to look at the financial health of a company, there's a lot of really good places out there like Investopedia and things like that that can kind of show you what these numbers mean. But anyway, you can scroll down here, you can see kind of what this company does. They're selling phosphates and potash and fertilizants, which are all used in commercial fertilizers for farming. And you can see where some of their mines and processing plants and stuff like that are at. And then if you keep scrolling down, you'll find a lot of the company's information. They'll talk a lot about their future plans, current locations, how much money they're making, things like that, and locations and their outlook. And they also have a lot of stuff in here about risk and stuff, basically telling you how the company's been performing in the past year. But if you scroll down far enough, all the really most important information to the average person is going to be found in a table. So if it doesn't look like a table, you can probably scroll past it. It probably has a bunch of very technical jargon that is largely not going to be easy to understand. But if you scroll down here, so finally we find the big table, which is what we care about here. So we can look at the years. It tells us when the year ended. So for them, the year does end on December 31st. And we have the past 3 years here, 2020, 2019, 2018. And then we can look at their net sales. We can also look at their cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold is how much it cost you to make that money. So how much did you have to spend in order to make? So net sales is how much you made, but cost of goods sold is how much you had to spend in order to make that money just on the actual goods themselves. Then you have your gross margin. And there's a lot of formulas in order to be able to get down to all of these values. They can be found really easy on the internet. If you're ever not sure about maybe what gross margin is or how it's calculated, just type it in and it'll pop up really easy on Investopedia and stuff. This is not a full-on financial course, so I'm not going to talk about all that, but this is where you can find all this information. And it's often interesting just to see how much money all of these companies are doing. So you see 8,000 here. Well, that's in millions. So that's actually $8 billion. So you're talking about extremely, extremely large companies making lots and lots of money. But you're seeing here that just because they reported sales of 8 billion, they spent 7.6 billion to make that 8 billion. And you can look down through here, you can find out they have other operating expenses and many, many things that go into it. But if you come down here, you can get into their net earnings or their net loss. And as you can see in 2019, they had a net loss of almost $1 billion. But then this year they're up about 665 million. And it's important to be able to see all this stuff before you invest in a company. A lot of people like to be able to invest in companies because they know the name brand or they like the name brand. But this is a massive company, and you can see that maybe the financial health of this company isn't as good as it could be, considering they just had $1 billion in debt the last year that they lost. So these are important things to be able to look at, is actually the financial health of the company that you're investing in. And if you get down here, they'll have more details about what they're selling, what it looks like, what their kind of their margins stuff are for individual things. Like this is potash, that one was phosphates, fertilizants. And so it breaks down their business in that sense. There's also a natural gas swap down here somewhere. Talks about their debts. and all these different types of things, which these are all important in order to know. Here's their natural gas swaps. But it's important to be able to know in order to be investing, is order to actually know not only what the information means, but where to get it. And so this is a really good way to be able to get that information. And then kind of a fun thing that really doesn't mean a whole lot, but it's often interesting to see. People always wonder, you see these massive companies, you're like, well, how much do they make? Well, if you go here to their proxy statements and you see this DEF 14A here, click on that proxy statement and it's going to pop up this. And you can scroll down and they try to hide this stuff. So it's not directly on theirs, but you can scroll down here and they're going to tell you a lot about the company and what they're for and what they're against. This is their environmental, social justice, their strategy, things like that, in order to almost distract you and hide the information. They have some information about everyone, their pay mix, which has to do with the fact they make a lot of their money not through actual just getting paid that cash. They make a lot of it by getting some of the stock of those companies and other benefits, but they're still making that much money. So they try to find their ways around it. Here's their environmental, social, and governance. And this is nice to be able to see what your company that you're investing in cares about and stuff, but they're using it in this case to hide how much money they're making. And so as we continue to scroll down, it tells you more about these people, about the managing directors and such. You can scroll past all of that. Yet again, if it's not in a table, you probably don't really need to care that much about it. So here's their director stock ownership. And then if you keep scrolling, you can see their director compensation. So this is for their board of directors. What they tell you right here is that they have them all listed as making 90, some of them make more, but 90 to 180,000, most around the 90, 100,000 mark in cash. But then they make more than that in stocks. So they're actually all coming out to 200 to up to $444,000 a year, which is quite a lot bit more money than if you just saw the fact that this person made 180,000, which is still a lot of money, but they made well over double that. So that's some of the deceiving things that you see here. You see that this person only made $55,000 is what they're having them as their salary. But in stocks, they made $155,000. So they're making much, much more money than what they're saying by just what their salary is. And so it's often interesting to see that kind of stuff. And as you scroll further down, that's the board of directors. That's not actually the people that run the company. It's people that kind of advise the company. You scroll down, it tells you more about where all their money's coming from. But then you get down here. This is the base salary of the actual CEO. It has their titles and stuff up here for who is what titles. I think it's up right here. So the O'Rourke is their president and CEO, so on and so forth. But you can come down here and you can see how much money they made in 2020. This is their salary alone. So this guy makes $1.2 million on just his salary. All of them are above $500,000. And when you come down to their short-term incentive measures, here's their target payouts up to $1.6 million or $1.6 million a year. He made that much last year, which is just crazy to see how much money some of these people are making. And their long-term incentives are even bigger. And so long-term incentives here are up to almost $8 million, which is pretty crazy. It's hard to even fathom people making that much money. And like I said, that money is not necessarily just being handed out to them in cash. It's often through stocks and other benefits and things like that. But eventually they will all likely turn into money. Whether or not they turn into that much money, maybe not. But if you scroll through here, you can see that the total compensation for their CEO was $12 million this year. And if you look at last year, the company lost about $1 billion last year. He still walked away with $9 million, even though the guy running the company lost $1 billion, which is pretty crazy to be able to see that and just how much money these people are making. So that's a fun little thing that you can find that they don't necessarily want you to be able to find, and people don't always tell you where it's at, but there's ways to be able to find it for any public company. So hopefully you learned something today. And if there's ever a company and you get to talk to someone in a meeting or something that's really high up in a publicly traded company, you can then go look up their information and see kind of just how much money that person makes and just how well their company's doing. So hopefully you learned something today. Good luck.